So before moving here to Halifax last summer, I was living in Detroit, Michigan. I was there as a seminarian. I was still studying to be a priest. Now, Michigan, just like Nova Scotia, can have some pretty brutal and unpleasant winters. So the temperatures drop drastically, pretty nasty snowstorms, the roads are a mess, right? Pretty unpleasant. And I remember this one particular winter was pretty bad. It seemed to drag on longer than usual. And two seminarian brothers of mine, who were also just so done with winter, just like I was, we decided, we've had enough. We've had enough. So when March break rolled around, we hopped on a plane, we got out of that winter mess, flew a direct flight to good old Mexico, right? Good old Mexico, paradise, right? And it was a glorious, glorious several days. We walked around in t-shirts and shorts all week. We visited the beach several times. We had tacos and drinks at the park. We even got to enjoy some cigars in the cool of the evening. Couldn't be any better, right? Now, on our last day there, we decided we're going to splurge a little bit. And we went to an all-you-can-eat Mexican breakfast right on the beach. It was great. It was our last meal, final meal, last hours in paradise. And then I remember as we began to leave that place, something really weird happened. So as we started to walk away from the beach, one of the brothers I was with all of a sudden stopped in his tracks without warning. And then he turned his gaze towards the beach, towards the ocean, and then he just awkwardly stood there, like he was frozen or something. Not a single movement, not a single word. His back turned towards us, so I had no idea what was going on. Was he praying? Was he reflecting? Was he crying? Was he talking to Mother Nature, saying goodbye? I didn't know. But he just stood there. And one long minute turned to 2 minutes, then it turned into 5 minutes, and then it turned into what felt like 10 long, awkward minutes of him just having his personal moment on the beach. And at first it was a little funny, and then it just kind of felt depressing because it became clear that he was having some sort of existential crisis over having to leave the joy of this Mexico sunshine to return to the misery of the Michigan cold. Now finally, after what felt like eternity, he came back to reality, he turned around, and we resumed our departure as if nothing happened, So it was such an awkward and weird moment. And by the way, if you're wondering who that brother was, I'm talking about none other than seminarian Alex Kaladi. He was still a seminarian at the time, former associate pastor here, and I see some of you nodding as you look at his picture. You're like, okay, the weirdness makes sense. It was him, right? But isn't it true that something like this can be a common experience for us sometimes? Right, where we have this experience of being filled with intense joy and consolation by a particular experience, but then that joy can be so fleeting, so temporary. Right, we experience it for a short period of time, and then it's back to reality, as if joy is just meant for isolated moments that are few and far between. So, easy example is vacations. Right, you go away with family somewhere warm and fun, maybe Disney World or Legoland or something like that, and it's a great time. But then you get to that sad moment when the vacation is done. It's time to return home where it's not quite the same. Or as a kid, you get a new toy, or as an adult, you get a new gadget, right? And there's that initial joy and excitement over the novelty of this thing, right? All the cool things that it can do. But then, soon enough, it starts to feel pretty regular. The novelty quickly wears off, and then so does the joy and the excitement. Or relationships, right? Especially romantic relationships. There's always that initial joy and excitement, that head over heels experience. But then it doesn't always remain that way, right? And those of you who are married, you know this better than I do. And then even in the spiritual life, sometimes we'll go to a retreat, go to a faith event where we have this really powerful experience, and we're on a spiritual high for a short while, but then it wears off. And we return to normal life, and the experience of joy becomes this distant memory of the past. So our experiences of joy can sometimes be so fleeting, so temporary. So what's the deal? Right? What's the deal with that? Is it just part of life for joy to be so up and down, so inconsistent? Is this what joy is meant to be like? Or is there in fact such thing as a deeper and permanent and lasting joy that we're meant to experience? Now I think you can probably guess the answer that's coming, right? So in our gospel today, Jesus says this to his disciples. He says, I have said these things to you so that my joy may be in you and your joy may be complete. So Jesus talks about a joy that's complete. Complete meaning full, meaning lacking in nothing. So according to him, there is such a thing as joy that's not fleeting and not temporary. A joy that's deeply rooted and endures, a lasting kind of joy. And he boldly promises this to his disciples. He boldly promises it to us, right? Who wouldn't say yes to this offer of complete joy? I sure wouldn't, right? Yes, please, I want more of that. So the million-dollar question is, where do we get it? How do we experience this joy that Jesus is promising? Well, we go back to his words. He said, I have said these things that will lead to complete joy. And what was it that he said right before this? His clear instruction, abide in my love. Abide in my love. That when we abide in his love, it's then that we receive his joy in us. And what does it mean to abide? To abide means to remain, to stay, to dwell, to live within this particular thing. And so abiding in the love of God means to always remain and stay here in the love of God, to be aware of it in everything that we do, to live every aspect and experience of our life out of this core truth that we are loved by God. That's what it means to abide in God's love. And when this becomes the very paradigm of our living, the lens through which we see and experience and live our entire lives, then we really start to experience that lasting joy that Jesus promises. This joy that is rooted deeply, this joy that doesn't fade away, that doesn't go away so quickly. And so this complete joy that we all desire, this is the secret to experiencing it. Abiding in the love of God. Now, practically speaking, what does that look like? How do we do that, right? Well, I want to teach you this morning a powerful spiritual tool that's going to help us abide in God's love. And the spiritual tool is called practicing the presence of God. It's a spiritual practice that was especially popularized by a 17th century French monk named Brother Lawrence. He had a book by the same title. And this practice is all about becoming aware and staying aware of God's presence at every moment of my day, right? Where every thought, every action is done with an awareness that God is with me. Now, this particular practice is distinct from our formal times of prayer and worship, right? So, of course, our daily prayer time and our communal prayer, like the Mass, these are all good and important and necessary. But what we're talking about here is something different. Practicing the presence of God is a habit of becoming acutely aware at random moments in my day that God loves me and that He's here with me right now. So it's the habit of pausing throughout my day and asking myself something like, am I aware that God loves me right now, right in this moment? And then inviting God into that moment by saying something like, God, show me that you love me. And doing this throughout your day, doing it multiple times a day, this is what it looks like to practice the presence of God. So just imagine you roll out of bed. You start preparing your morning coffee. As you're waiting for the water to boil, maybe you're still in a daze, maybe you're still half asleep. You pause and you ask, am I aware that God loves me right now, right in this moment? God, show me that you love me. Later in the day, you're at work, you're sifting through your inbox, reading through the mountain of emails, which we all know is super fun, right? Between emails, you take a moment and you pause. You ask, am I aware that God loves me right now, right in this moment? God, show me that you love me. And then you're out for a lunchtime run. You have to stop at an intersection as you wait for cars to clear. As you're struggling to catch your breath, you pause and you ask, am I aware that God loves me right now, right in this moment? God, show me that you love me. Then later in the evening, you're at home. You just finished dinner with the family. You're helping clean up, or you're pretending to help clean up, right? And you pause and you ask, am I aware that God loves me right now, right in this moment? God, show me that you love me. And then finally, you lie in bed, you're ready to call it a day, and moments before falling asleep, the last thing that you do is you pause and you ask this question: am I aware that God loves me right now, right in this moment? God, show me that you love me. This is what it looks like to practice the presence of God, to become aware of God's presence at every moment of the day, and to invite Him into every moment of the day. And some of you are probably looking at this thinking, hey, this is overly simple. In a real way, it is. It's very simple. And yet, it's a profoundly powerful tool for our lives as disciples. And it's rightly called a practice because it takes practice. It takes intentionality. It's a skill that we need to learn, a spiritual muscle that we need to strengthen and build. And we do that simply by doing it. And the more and more we practice pausing throughout our day to become aware of God's presence, the more it becomes a habit. And when it starts to become a habit, then we really start to abide in God's love. And when we abide in God's love, we experience a joy that isn't temporary, but instead it's a complete and lasting joy, just as Jesus promises. And so what I want to encourage you to do this coming week is to take this spiritual tool with you, take it home with you, and I want you to use it. I want you to try it out. I want you to go home and different times of your day to try it out, and feel free to use these very exact words that I've given to you. In fact, right now, if you like, I give you permission to take your phone out and make a note of these words or take a photo of it. And what I want you to do is throughout your days this coming week, whenever that idea pops into your mind, at any moment of the day, no matter what it is you're doing, practice the presence of God by pausing and asking this question: am I aware that God loves me right now, right in this moment? God, show me that you love me. And this is exactly how we can effectively abide in the love of God, when we live every aspect of our lives aware of His loving presence. And because God's love for us is constant and unchanging, that deep joy is also constant and unchanging. No matter what it is that's going on around us, right? In exciting seasons of life, in more mellow seasons of life, when we face happy and uplifting situations, when we face difficult situations, that joy remains. Because we are aware that in every and all circumstances, God's loving presence is with us. Everything we do, everything we experience, all our activities, all our relationships, everything would be permeated with that deep and lasting joy that goes beyond anything the world alone could offer. Because then it would be the very joy of Jesus within us. And our experience of joy would then, in fact, be complete.